When the human came home, there was an alien girl in his kitchen, and he was shocked. The sliding door to apartment 742C opened with a soft hydraulic hiss. Rowan Ives stepped inside, expecting silence. Instead, he heard the faint scrape of metal against ceramic. He stopped just past the threshold. The air smelled different, warm, sweet, human. Steam drifted across the kitchen light, curling above the counter. Someone was there. Rowan's heartbeat climbed, sharp and fast. His instincts, the kind that never really went away after years of field work, told him not to move too quickly. His right hand hovered near the side, holster he no longer carried. Old habits. A figure froze near the stove. She was small, barefoot, soaked through as if she'd come in from the acid rain drizzle, still hanging over the upper decks of Irispan, the floating city. Her skin had a faint purple sheen, Ellery, or maybe a hybrid, and long strands of white hair clung to her cheeks. An oversized teal mesh shawl hung around her shoulders like something found in a trash chute. The shirt she wore was a human-make gray, far too large, one sleeve torn, collar hanging open. She had been scraping a pot, the one he'd left on the warmer that morning, half filled with Zyronberry porridge. When the door hissed closed behind him, she jumped. The spoon clattered onto the floor. Her wide eyes locked on his, pupils shifting like liquid glass. I didn't mean, I'll leave. Her voice shook. Rowan didn't answer at first. He let his brain process what he was seeing, a malnourished alien girl in his government-regulated kitchen, in one of the most heavily monitored cities in the Orion Belt. That shouldn't be possible. No one got through the checkpoints without an ID tag. But the fear in her eyes wasn't an act. He lowered his hand slowly. "You're not going anywhere," he said, tone measured, the kind of voice medics used in a crisis ward. "Not yet. Sit down before you collapse." She froze. "You're not calling enforcement?" "No." He crossed the room deliberately, reached for 2 bowls, and poured out what was left of the porridge. The texture had thickened, but it was still edible. He added a line of Larn fruit syrup, stirred, and set 1 bowl in front of her. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. She ate fast, barely breathing between spoonfuls. He sat opposite, watching. Years of field medicine had trained him to spot hunger the way others spotted lies. Dry lips, faint tremor, I flickered toward escape routes. Whoever she was, she'd been surviving on almost nothing. When she slowed, he asked quietly, "Name?" "Nia." "Last?" "Solon." Her voice cracked on it, as if she hadn't said it aloud in weeks. He nodded once. "Rowan Ives." She blinked. "The registry? Auditor?" He frowned. "You know me? I saw your tag once, at the depot's manifest post. You worked logistics for the evac trains. Years ago." He didn't correct her. Not worth explaining that he'd quit the Corps after the evacuation riots, when bureaucracy started deciding who lived and who didn't. He leaned back. "How'd you get in here, Nia?" "The cleaning bot. It jammed your door open when it malfunctioned. I saw the light. I was just looking for food. I swear I wasn't going to steal anything else." Her accent clipped certain consonants, Ellery vowels rounded, but her galactic standard was clear. She looked young, 20s maybe, but her eyes carried the hollow glaze of someone who'd stopped expecting kindness. Rowan studied her a moment longer. Part of him wanted to contact security, follow procedure, write a clean report, and go back to his quiet routine of counting cargo shipments for a government that didn't care about people like her. But another part, the one that remembered field hospitals full of starving evacuees, wouldn't let him. "You from the lower atriums?" he asked. She nodded. "Sealand Atrium. Performer division. Dancer, sometimes singer. I lost my permit after the collapse last quarter. The sponsor cut our housing and ration cards. After that, no one wanted to hire an Ellery." The words came out matter-of-fact, stripped of self-pity. He exhaled slowly. "So you've been living off-grid?" Inside the vent systems under the promenade. "Alone." A brief flicker of pride crossed her face. "Yes." He looked at her hands. The skin was cracked around the knuckles, faintly discolored from cold exposure. He recognized early malnutrition, maybe even mild hypothermia. "You'll stay here tonight," he said finally. Her spoon paused midair. "Why?" "Because you'll die out there." Her eyes narrowed. And in here, you'll eat, shower, and sleep. That's it. The directness seemed to disarm her more than kindness would have. She gave a small nod, as if agreeing to a contract she didn't quite trust. Rowan stood, moving to the water unit. He poured 2 cups of Ferlin seed coffee, its sharp, earthy scent filling the space. He placed one near her, then leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You understand, this building runs routine security scans. If they pick up an unregistered biosignature, I get flagged. So tomorrow, we'll find a way to mask your trace until we sort something out. Her eyes widened slightly. You're helping me? I'm making sure my kitchen isn't stormed by drones at 3 a.m., he said dryly. Earned a small, startled laugh, barely there but real. They ate in silence for a while. Outside the transparent wall, the lights of Iris Band pulsed softly through the mist. Cargo gliders drifted between levels, their trails glowing faint green. The city never slept. It simply hummed at different volumes. Nia's voice broke the quiet. Why are you here? You don't look like the type to stay in one place. Used to move. Then I got tired of watching people vanish on paper. This job keeps me out of the noise. You don't like people? I like order, he said. It doesn't lie to me. She studied him, really looked now. The faint scars on his neck. The calm that came from surviving too many emergencies. You were military once. Medic, he corrected. Still military. He didn't argue. When the bowls were empty, she stood. I'll clean it. You don't have to. I want to. Her movements were precise. Someone trained to perform in front of others, even when unseen. As she rinsed the pot, Rowan watched her shoulders tremble from fatigue. When she reached to hang the towel, her fingers missed the hook. Reflex made him step forward and steady her elbow. She flinched, breath catching. Easy, he said quietly, not letting go until she found her balance. Her pulse beat fast beneath his hand. She nodded, silent, then finished cleaning. He pointed toward the couch in the adjoining room. You can sleep there. The blanket's clean. She hesitated in the doorway. You really trust me here? No, he said honestly, but I trust my own reflexes more. That earned another flicker of smile. When she finally settled on the couch, curling beneath the thin blanket, Rowan dimmed the kitchen lights. He stood by the window for a long time, watching the upper platforms glide past in the night air. He thought about calling it in, just once anonymously, but every scenario ended with her back in a detention block or deported to a planet no one remembered funding. He rubbed a hand over his face. You're losing your edge, he muttered to himself. But as he turned toward the couch again, he saw her sleeping, breathing slow, fingers still clutching the edge of the blanket as if afraid it might be taken. Something tightened in his chest. For the first time in months, the silence of his apartment didn't feel peaceful. It felt like responsibility. He exhaled, switched the system to night mode, and left her there. Tomorrow, he'd figure out what the hell to do with a hungry alien girl who broke into his kitchen. But tonight, he let her sleep. Rowan woke early, before the city lights shifted from violet to white. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the air recycler. For a moment, he wondered if she'd vanished in the night. Then he saw her, curled up on the couch, wrapped tightly in the blanket, white hair fanned across the pillow. She looked even younger in sleep, smaller. The tension that had locked her jaw the night before had softened. He could see the faint shimmer of heat patches along her forearms. Old Ellery implants used for temperature regulation. Most had been stripped from the population after the occupation. Hers were still faintly glowing, but unstable. That explained the trembling. He brewed coffee, the familiar bitter scent filling the room. When the machine hissed, Nia stirred, blinking toward the light. She froze again when she saw him at the counter. He spoke before she could panic. You're safe. Still here. She nodded slowly, clutching the blanket around her. I thought maybe you'd... She didn't finish the sentence. Call someone, he said. I thought about it. Her lips parted, breath catching. He poured a second cup. Then I didn't. Nia watched him carefully, as if waiting for the catch. Why not? He shrugged. Didn't feel right. He didn't mention the file he had half open on his wristband last night. Security logs, tenant surveillance reports, facial captures. He deleted the one that showed her entering through the maintenance hatch. It was a simple command. Still, it felt like cutting a thread that couldn't be tied back. "You deleted my trace, didn't you?" she said softly. He turned, coffee cup halfway to his lips. "How do you know that?" "I used to live in the atrium systems," she said. "I know how the registry works. If I trip your door's biometric net, drones would have come before morning." He studied her face again. She wasn't naive. She understood risk in the way only someone hunted once could. "You're right," he said. "I erased it." "Why?" "Because I've seen what happens to people like you when I don't." She was silent for a moment, eyes fixed on the edge of the counter. "I should still go," she murmured. "If they scan me near your unit again." "You're not leaving yet." His tone carried the same unshakable calm that had guided medevac teams through panic zones. "You need to stabilize your implants and eat properly for a few days. Then we'll think about the rest." Her eyes lifted slowly. "You say we like it's already decided." "It is," he said. Rowan turned away before she could argue and set a small pan on the heating plate. He opened a sealed packet of Turvan flank meat, sliced it into thin strips, and dropped it into the sizzling oil. The smell filled the kitchen, earthy, savory, grounding. Nia sat on the couch, her knees drawn up, watching him move. "You cook," she said, half surprised. "Sometimes. Humans always talk about takeout meals and nutrient bars. Those are for people who don't want to think." He scraped the meat into a dish, added Draxon mushrooms, and a spoon of Zyron preserves. "Cooking's a way to slow down, to check if you're still alive." She gave a small smile. "And are you?" He met her eyes over the steam. "Working on it." They ate in relative quiet. When she tasted the meat, she stopped after the first bite. The flavor, the warmth, hit her harder than expected. He saw the way her throat worked as she tried not to cry. She covered it by drinking from her water cup. When she'd eaten half, she looked up again. "What is your job, really?" "You said auditor, but you talk like a medic." "I was one," he said. "Field Corps, 9 years. Evac and trauma response during the Belt conflicts. I left after the Serene riots." "I remember those," she said quietly. "They said thousands died. They didn't say most of them died waiting for permission to be moved." He paused. "I filed reports about that. No one read them. So you quit." He nodded. "Found something quieter. Numbers don't bleed." She frowned. "You sound like someone who still believes they can fix things, even after saying that." He looked at her, really looked this time. "You sound like someone who stopped believing anyone could." Her gaze dropped. "Maybe both are true." Outside, Iris Band began to wake. The transport lanes glowed to life, air trams humming across the mist. Sunlight filtered through the dome's shielding, cut pale gold across the room. Rowan's wristband buzzed. A system alert. Building security sweep scheduled for mid-cycle. Random ID verification. His jaw tightened. "They're doing another round," he said. Her posture straightened instantly. "What does that mean?" "They'll scan for unregistered life signs on this level." Her pulse spiked. He could see it in her neck. "Then I have to hide." He checked the time. 30 minutes. He guided her to the small alcove beside the maintenance shaft. "Inside here. It's shielded from thermal scans." She stepped in without hesitation, but just before he sealed it, she caught his wrist. "If they find me, don't lie for me. You'll lose everything." "Stop talking," he said, tone low but firm. "And don't move." She nodded once. The doorbell tone sounded exactly 28 minutes later. Rowan wiped his hands on a towel, composed his face, and opened the door. 2 inspectors stood there, one human, one android. The human scanned the room. Routine bio verification. "Stand still." Rowan nodded, keeping his breathing steady. The scanner passed over his torso, the faint hum vibrating in the air. The android moved closer to the corner, sensors pulsing red. For a tense moment, it hovered near the alcove wall. Rowan spoke before the operator could react. "If you're picking up a thermal echo, that's the faulty heating pipe again. It triggers on random cycles. Maintenance logged it last week." The android paused, processing. The human scrolled through the data pad. "Yes. Registered issue, code 4-9A. All right, carry on." They left. Rowan didn't move for a full 10 seconds after the door closed. Then he exhaled and opened the panel. Nia blinked against the light, sweat beading along her temple. "You can come out." She stepped forward, unsteady. I thought, they're gone. She pressed a hand to her chest, exhaling hard. You risked your job for me. Don't make it sound noble. I just hate paperwork. But his tone softened at the end. Nia leaned against the counter, the fear still visible in her face. They would have taken me. You know that, right? I know. I don't understand why you care. Rowan didn't answer immediately. He filled 2 glasses with Orvan water and handed her one. Because someone should have cared before it got this bad. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no distance there, only quiet understanding. He could feel the weight of what had just happened. How one choice, pressing delete, opening a door, speaking to an inspector without flinching, had shifted both their paths. Eat again in a few hours, he said, returning to his chair. You'll need the strength. She nodded slowly. And after that, he said, we figure out how to make Iris Span forget you exist. She looked at him, unsure if he was joking. He wasn't. Outside, the sky glowed brighter, the city alive again. Inside, a human and an alien shared a silence that meant survival, for now. But neither of them believed it would stay that simple. Rowan didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen counter, the city's pale blue light moving across the walls like slow water. His wristband blinked every few minutes, updates from the registry, new shipment manifests, requests for audit approval. He ignored them all. Nia had fallen asleep again on the couch, curled beneath the same blanket. This time, though, she didn't tremble. Her breathing had settled into an even rhythm. He watched her for a while, trying to understand why he hadn't just sent her away. It wasn't pity. It was something heavier, something quieter. At dawn, the apartment's system lights brightened automatically. The schedule pinged his wristband. Sector D, 17 cargo audit, 9 o'clock sharp. He had to leave. He prepared breakfast first, a habit he couldn't break. The smell of roasted furlan seed coffee filled the air. He placed a plate of Turvan flank and Draxon mushroom slices beside a small bowl of sweetened Varen root mash on the counter. She would find it when she woke. He hesitated a moment, then left a folded note next to it. Back by second glow. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone. The walk to the registry was quiet. The sky city floated above a bed of mist, sunlight filtering through its glass terraces. Rowan's thoughts moved faster than the air trams gliding overhead. Every camera he passed felt heavier now. He'd erased one illegal biometric trace. If someone checked the system deeper, it could trace back to him. At the registry, the day played out like any other. Data streams, cargo scans, colleagues making dull conversation. He tried to focus, but his mind kept drifting back to the apartment, to the girl sleeping in a place she didn't belong. Around midday, he received an encrypted message on his private terminal. It wasn't from the registry. The sender was Mara Teln, his neighbor from 2 floors down. Mara, hey Rowan, you around? Your unit service panel was blinking red earlier. Maybe a leak? Just thought I'd check. He froze. That service panel was next to the maintenance alcove where Nia had hidden yesterday. His pulse ticked faster. He typed back quickly. Rowan, thanks. It's fine. I'll handle it tonight. He shut down the terminal before she could reply. Back at the apartment, the door unlocked with a soft tone. The smell of food lingered. She had cooked something. On the table sat a pot of Zyron berry stew, still warm. Nia appeared from the balcony, holding a damp towel and smiling faintly. You're back. I told you I would be. You work long hours, she said, eyeing him carefully. I do. He stepped closer to the stove. You cook. She nodded, hesitant. I wanted to return the favor. I found some supplies in your cabinet. Hope that's okay. It's fine. He tasted a spoonful. It was simple but good. Tart berries, mild spice, just enough salt. Not bad. She looked relieved. We used to cook in big kitchens at the atrium before they closed our housing. It feels strange to eat standing still. He studied her for a moment. She looked cleaner now. She'd clearly used the purifier shower, her hair tied back with a thin strip of fabric, her skin glimmering faintly in the filtered light. The teal mesh shawl hung neatly on the chair beside her. You can use the shower again if you need, he said. And that heating patch in your forearm. How long's it been failing? She blinked, surprised. You noticed? Medic habit. You're running a slight temperature fluctuation. 3 weeks, maybe 4. The implant started glitching after the last power outage in the vents. He nodded. I can recalibrate it. I still have my old med scanner. Nia hesitated, visibly uneasy. If you try to access my implant, it'll register your ID. They'll know. Not if I do it offline. Her brow furrowed. You're risking too much for someone you don't know. Knowing you isn't the problem, he said quietly. It's trusting the system, that is. She didn't answer, but her expression softened. He retrieved a small med kit from the storage drawer, old but functional. The scanner emitted a soft pulse as he ran it across her forearm. The reading flickered red, then stabilized in amber. You were close to a thermal crash, he said. Another day or 2 out there, and your body would have shut down. Her eyes dropped. Then you really did save me. Not yet, he said. You'll need replacement microcells. I'll see what I can find. Nia looked at him with something between gratitude and confusion. Why do you keep helping me, Rowan? You don't even know what I've done. He paused, meeting her gaze. Do I need to? She hesitated, then said quietly, I wasn't just a dancer. We used to perform for the Ellery Assembly, the old councils before they were disbanded. I spoke against the trade contracts when humans started controlling the lower markets. They call me a sympathizer. My whole troupe was blacklisted. Some of them disappeared. I think someone reported me. He said nothing for a moment. Then, calmly, so you ran. Yes. He nodded. Then you're not the first. Her voice broke a little. You lost people too? Rowan leaned back against the counter, eyes unfocused. Field medic during the Serene riots. I pulled 6 people out of the corridors before the drones hit. 2 made it to the shuttle. The others didn't. Nia's tone softened. That's why you quit. That's why I stopped believing in rescue missions. They stood in silence, the hum of the city filling the room again. It wasn't an awkward silence, more like 2 people finally acknowledging they were both broken in different ways. Then the door chime rang. Rowan's body tensed instantly. He motioned to Nia, pointing toward the maintenance alcove. She moved fast, silent, disappearing behind the panel. He opened the door halfway. Mara stood there, smiling awkwardly, holding a toolkit. Sorry to bother you again. The hallway sensors flagged a humidity issue near your vent. Thought I'd check before it turns into mold. Rowan forced a neutral expression. It's fine. Just a leak. I already patched it. Mara tilted her head slightly, peering past him. You're sure? The readings came from right inside your wall. His heartbeat picked up. I'm sure, he said evenly. Mara frowned. You're not usually this tense, Rowan. Everything okay? He managed a faint smile. Too much coffee. She chuckled. All right, I'll trust you. But if the sensors keep flagging, they'll send building techs. He nodded once. Thanks for the warning. When the door finally shut, he leaned against it for a moment, listening to his pulse slow. He tapped the panel behind the couch twice, his signal. The door to the alcove slid open, and Nia stepped out, pale and shaking. They'll come back, she whispered. I know. What if they find me? Then we make sure they don't. Her voice trembled. You can't keep doing this, Rowan. They'll notice you erasing logs. You'll lose your job, maybe your license. He met her eyes, voice calm but firm. Then I'll lose it. She looked at him for a long time, trying to find a lie and failing. You don't even know why I walked into your kitchen that night. Because you were hungry, he said. That's reason enough. Her lips parted as if she might argue, but she didn't. Later, as night settled over Ira's span, they sat at the counter again, eating what was left of the Zyron stew. The city lights shimmered through the window like a low tide of color. Nia spoke first. If they find out you helped me, they won't just fire you. They'll mark your ID. You won't be able to work again. Rowan shrugged. Then I'll learn something new. She looked at him, half exasperated, half moved. You say that like it's easy. It's not, he said, meeting her eyes. But I've done harder things. For the first time since he met her, she smiled. Not a nervous flicker, but something quiet and real. He didn't return it, but the corner of his mouth shifted, barely noticeable. Outside, the dome lights dimmed to their evening hue, and inside, the silence between them began to change. It wasn't survival anymore. It was something slower, steadier, something that made Both of them realized they weren't alone in the fight to stay human in a city that had forgotten how. Rain began to fall over Ira's span, the kind that never reached the ground. Soft sheets of condensation caught by the dome filters, rolling down the glass in thin trails of light. Inside Rowan's apartment, the sound was faint but constant, like static whispering across metal. He sat at the counter, datapad open, pretending to read the day's shipment reports. His mind wasn't on the numbers. Across the room, Nia was humming quietly while folding the clean laundry she'd insisted on doing. Her voice was low, a little rough from disuse, but the melody carried through the room with a warmth he hadn't realized he'd been missing. He looked up. "That a song from your world?" She hesitated, fingers pausing on a folded shirt. "From the Ellery Atrium. We used to sing it before performances. It meant good fortune. You think it works?" "Not lately," she said, half smiling. He smiled back faintly. "Maybe we'll test it." It had been 3 days since the inspection scare. Mara hadn't come back, but the building's system log showed increased maintenance traffic on nearby floors. Rowan had rerouted the local sensors in his section, using old medic-grade encryption keys, something he hadn't done since his time on field deployments. It wasn't illegal, but it wasn't clean either. He told himself it was temporary, just until he found a safer place for Nia to disappear. She caught him watching her again. "You're worried?" He didn't deny it. The system sweeps are getting closer. If they recalibrate their thermal scanners, the alcove won't hide you anymore. "What will you do then?" "I'll think of something." "You always say that," she said softly. "And somehow you always do." He leaned back in his chair. "You're learning to trust too easily." "Maybe," she said, folding another shirt. "But it's the first time it hasn't hurt me yet." He let that hang between them. When she finished, she carried the laundry to the storage shelf. The oversized shirt she'd been wearing, the one that had belonged to him, was still on her, tied at the waist with a piece of teal fabric. She caught him glancing once, maybe twice, and laughed under her breath. "What?" he asked. "You look like you want to say something, but don't." "I was thinking about how quiet it's been," he said. "Feels strange. Too quiet." He nodded. "Maybe that's what peace sounds like," she said. He didn't answer. Peace wasn't something he believed in anymore. But watching her standing there, barefoot, calm, eyes clearer than the day she'd arrived, he wondered if maybe she was right. Later that afternoon, while Nia was cleaning the counter, the door chimes startled them both. 3 tones, official rhythm. Not Mara this time. Rowan's pulse kicked hard. He checked the door screen, Registry Maintenance Division. 2 officers, scanning helmets visible through the lens. He turned to Nia. "Maintenance crew, don't move. Stay out of sight." Her voice dropped. "Can they see Heat's signatures?" "Yes." "Then I need to hide somewhere colder." He nodded toward the balcony. "The storage cabinet. It's insulated for weather control." She slipped inside quickly, pulling the sliding panel closed behind her. Rowan straightened his uniform shirt and opened the door. "Good afternoon," the lead officer said, polite but firm. "Routine system recalibration. We're verifying humidity and heat sensors across this level. Shouldn't take more than 5 minutes." "Of course," Rowan said, stepping aside. "Help yourself." The two moved through the apartment, scanners glowing soft orange as they mapped the air. He could feel his pulse in his throat. The balcony sensor flashed briefly, orange, then green again. The android officer paused. "Temperature irregularity outside your perimeter. Balcony units reading below average." Rowan's voice stayed steady. "Weather controller's been running heavy because of the dome condensation. I adjusted it manually." The officer glanced at him, checked the log. "Manual override confirmed. Unusual for residential units." "Former field medic," Rowan said quickly. "Habit. I like regulating my own systems." A pause. Then the android turned back toward the door. "All readings within acceptable range. Appreciate your cooperation," the lead officer said. When the door shut, Rowan exhaled and went to the balcony. He slid the cabinet open. Nia was crouched there, hugging her knees, breath shaking from the cold. He pulled her out gently, wrapping her in the blanket from the couch. "Hey, you're fine." She nodded, trying to catch her breath. "I heard everything. I thought they knew." "They didn't," he said. "You did good. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder. I can't keep hiding like this, Rowan. It's not living. I know. No, you don't. You still go to work. You still use your name. I'm a shadow in someone else's home. He didn't have a reply. She looked up at him, eyes wet but steady. You said once you wanted order because it doesn't lie. Then why are you breaking the rules for me? Because they were never built for people like you, he said quietly. And I'm done pretending they were. The words hung there, heavier than either of them expected. That night, while the city's lights dimmed to their blue night cycle, Rowan sat on the couch beside her. They ate reheated stew from one bowl. Because he'd run out of clean dishes, he said, but she could see the truth in the small gesture. Between them, silence was no longer fear, it was understanding. After a long moment, she said, when I first came to your door, I thought you'd turn me in. I almost did. What stopped you? He thought for a while before answering. I saw how afraid you were, and I realized I'd seen that same fear in too many faces already. I couldn't do it again. She reached for his hand. You're not the kind of man who turns people in, Rowan. I wasn't sure what kind of man I was anymore, he said. Then maybe now you know. He didn't pull away. She leaned closer, cautious but sure, her voice barely above a whisper. I owe you everything. No, he said, shaking his head slightly. You owe me nothing. You just need to live. I can't live if I'm invisible. He looked at her then, really looked, saw the defiance under the fear, the spark of someone who once stood on a stage before crowds. Then maybe it's time people saw you again. Her breath caught. What do you mean? Tomorrow, you're not hiding in a cabinet. We'll find a way for you to stand in the open, even if it's just for an hour. Won't that be dangerous? Probably, he said. But so is breathing. She stared at him for a long time. Then, slowly, a smile appeared, the kind that carried both fear and hope. As the rain outside thickened against the glass dome, Rowan turned off the lights. The hum of the city softened, leaving only the rhythm of two people still awake in a world that had stopped making space for them. For the first time since the night she entered his kitchen, the air between them felt different, less about survival, more about choice. He didn't know how far this quiet rebellion would go, or what it would cost. But as Nia rested her head against his shoulder and the glow of the city lights moved across her violet skin, he knew one thing with certainty. He wouldn't let her vanish again. The next morning broke pale and gray, the kind of filtered daylight iris bands upper decks always produced after a storm. Rowan stood by the balcony window, watching the mist roll along the glass. He'd barely slept, his mind looping through the promise he'd made. Tomorrow, you're not hiding. He wasn't sure what that meant yet. Behind him, Nia moved quietly through the kitchen. The smell of warm varan root and roasted turvan meat filled the room. She wore the same oversized shirt, sleeves rolled up, her white hair tied back with a strip of teal cloth. There was something steady in her now, a rhythm returning. You cook like someone who's lived here for years, he said. She smiled faintly. Maybe I'm practicing, planning to stay long enough to get good at it. She looked up, measuring his tone. You let me? He didn't answer immediately. If it keeps you alive, yes. They ate together, standing at the counter. The food was simple but warm. When they finished, Rowan pulled out his wristband and brought up the city's public network, a list of lower promenade districts where street performers, sellers, and freelance workers registered daily permits. Nia frowned at the display. You're not thinking what I think you are. You said you can't live invisible. So don't be. I can't walk into a registry line, Rowan. They'll scan me before I take 2 steps. I know, but there are unofficial routes. Markets that operate outside the system, low-level trade sectors that don't care about tags as long as the rent's paid. Underground, he nodded. In a way, I helped a few of them years ago during evacuation drills. They owe me favors. She hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. And if someone recognizes me? Then we move again, he said. But until then, you sing. Her gaze dropped to the floor, the idea pulling her somewhere between hope and disbelief. I haven't sung in months. My voice isn't. Still yours? He interrupted gently. Then it's enough. They left just after first glow. Rowan had pulled a plain jacket over his work clothes. Nia wore her tied shirt and a skirt she'd mended with strips of fabric from his spare sheets. The teal shawl hung at her hip like a small flag of defiance. She looked vulnerable, yes, but also alive. They took the freight elevator down 20 levels to the South Promenade, where the filtered sunlight gave way to amber lamps and crowded airways. The smell of Zyron fruit, old grease, and human sweat mixed with the electric buzz of vendor stalls. Nia kept close behind him, eyes darting across faces, mechanical drones, and cheap holographic ads for food and trinkets. Every sound made her flinch slightly, but Rowan's steady pace grounded her. He stopped at a narrow alley where a metal sign flickered. Furlan Coffee, Stall 9. Behind a counter stood a man with gray-streaked hair and cybernetic eyes, polishing a cup. "Rowan Ives," the man said, smiling like he'd seen a ghost. "Didn't think you'd still be breathing air this high up." "Still managing?" Rowan said. "You still handle morning rotations?" The man, Corin Vale, nodded. "Same as ever." "Who's the girl?" "A friend. Looking for work." Corin raised a brow. "Singer?" Rowan glanced at Nia. "She is." Nia's mouth went dry. "I don't have registration papers." Corin waved a dismissive hand. "Half the vendors down here don't either. If she can sing without drawing enforcement, she's welcome to the morning shift. Just don't mention me if the inspectors show." Nia looked between them, disbelief turning slowly to nervous excitement. "I can try," she said quietly. Corin pointed to an open space near the stall where the air was thick with coffee steam and the murmur of workers taking early breaks. "That's your stage, Ellery." Rowan stood back as she walked into the open space. The first few people glanced her way, curious, cautious. She adjusted her shawl, took a deep breath, and began to sing. Her voice came out fragile at first, then steadier, growing into something clear and haunting. The melody climbed, weaving through the noise until conversations began to pause. It wasn't just her sound. It was the contrast, the humanity in a place built to forget it. Rowan watched from the side, his chest tightening. She wasn't performing for the crowd. She was proving something to herself, to the city, to him. When the song ended, silence held for a moment before the first person clapped. Then another. A few coins hit the tin bowl at her feet. Nia's lips parted in disbelief. Corin gave Rowan a knowing look. "You always did have a habit of collecting trouble." "Sometimes trouble sings," Rowan said quietly. They stayed until midday. Nia sang 3 songs, each stronger than the last. When her voice finally gave out, she leaned against the counter, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. "They listened," she whispered. "They did," Rowan said. "And no one scanned you." On the walk home, she was quiet, her gaze distant but alive. The wind carried the scent of roasted coffee and Lauren syrup from the lower stalls. At the apartment, she placed the coins on the counter, small, glimmering currency marks. "I earned this," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Yes," Rowan said. "You did." She looked at him. "You could have turned me in that first night, but you didn't. And now you're proving I was right not to." Her eyes softened. "You make it sound simple. It isn't, but it's something real." That evening, they cooked together for the first time. Rowan sliced the turvan meat while Nia handled the vegetables. Steam rose between them, warm and fragrant. Their movements began to align, passing plates, washing, tasting. There was no need for words. The quiet rhythm said enough. When the food was done, they ate by the window, looking out at the glow of the city. The mist outside had thinned, revealing distant transport lines cutting through the clouds like silver veins. Nia turned toward him, hesitant but sure. "Today was the first time I felt seen again." "You earned that," he said. She smiled faintly. "You sound proud." "I am." She leaned in then, closer than before. The air between them shifted. Her hand brushed his arm. He didn't move away. For a moment, their faces were inches apart. Her breath warm, her eyes uncertain but open. He could have kissed her then. Maybe she wanted him to. But instead, he just said quietly, "You should rest. You've done enough for one day." Her lips curved in something that was part smile, part frustration. Always the responsible one. Someone has to be. She stood, lingering near the doorway. "Good night, Rowan." "Good night, Nia." When she disappeared down the hall, he let out the breath he'd been holding. He rubbed his face, half smiling, half terrified by how much she was starting to mean to him. Outside, the city lights flickered and hummed, cold, precise, and indifferent. But inside that small apartment, something fragile and human had begun to take root. And for the first time in years, Rowan Ives found himself hoping it might survive. Morning light spilled across the floor in long rectangles. The city was quieter than usual. No air trams yet. No hum from the delivery lanes. Rowan sat on the couch, already awake, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm. He'd been up for hours, reviewing supply reports that no longer mattered. The numbers blurred. His focus kept sliding back to Nia's voice from yesterday, the raw, living sound of it. He hadn't realized how much that moment at the coffee stall had changed things until now. The quiet between them wasn't built on fear anymore. It was trust. Dangerous, maybe irreversible trust. He heard her stir in the spare room, a soft shuffle of bare feet. When she appeared in the doorway, wrapped in one of his gray shirts, her white hair was messy, her skin tinted faint lavender under the morning light. She blinked at him sleepily. "You've been awake all night," she said. "Couldn't sleep. Thinking about me?" "Thinking about what happens next," he said, honest as always. She smiled faintly and walked to the counter. "I made enough yesterday to buy real food. The vendor gave me a discount." She pulled a small cloth bag from the cabinet, revealing fresh Draxon mushrooms, a wedge of Zyron root, and a strip of preserved Turvan meat. Rowan stood, impressed. "You risked going alone?" "No one recognized me. I kept my head down." She started washing the ingredients under the tab, hands moving in practiced rhythm. "I can cook if you want to rest." He hesitated, then nodded. Watching her take over the kitchen felt strangely natural, like she'd always belonged there. While the skillet heated, he leaned against the counter. "You were good yesterday." She glanced back. "At singing, at being alive," he said. That made her pause, a small smile flickering. "You're terrible at compliments." "I'm a numbers man," he said. "We measure things differently." They ate quietly, both pretending not to notice the ease growing between them. When a meal was done, Nia looked toward the balcony. "Can I go out again tomorrow?" "Yes," Rowan said, "but not to the same place." Corin said a few inspectors came through the market after we left. Her expression tightened. "They were looking for me?" "They were looking for anyone unregistered." "Still, it's too close. I'll find another place." "Always planning ahead," she said. "Do you ever stop?" "Stopping gets people caught." She studied him for a moment. "You talk like you never left the field." He didn't answer that. She was right. A sudden alert chimed on his wristband. Incoming message, Mara, TLN. He opened it. A text blinked across the screen. "Rowan, need to talk. It's urgent. Meet me in the lower corridor after shift." His stomach tightened. Mara never sent urgent messages. She'd seen something. He looked up. Nia was watching him. "Who is it?" "My neighbor. The botanist." "Does she know?" "No, but she's smart enough to guess." Nia set her cup down slowly. "You should go. If she's suspicious, better to talk before she reports anything." He nodded. "You stay here. Keep the doors sealed." When evening came, he made his way down the narrow corridor to the hydroponic decks. The air smelled of damp soil and light chemicals. Mara stood near a stack of water tanks, arms folded, expression serious. "You've been acting strange, Rowan. Avoiding people. Hiding data from the maintenance grid." He kept his tone even. "You watching me now?" "I don't need to. The system does it for everyone. You know that. What do you want to say?" She lowered her voice. "A registry officer came to my lab this morning. They're running a trace on unauthorized biometric signatures in this block. They have a list of potential units. Yours is on it." He exhaled quietly. "How long?" 2 days, maybe less." "Rowan, if there's someone in your apartment." He cut her off. "Mara, don't finish that sentence." Her eyes widened. "So there's someone." He didn't confirm it, but the silence said enough. She looked conflicted. "You can't protect her forever. They'll scan the building." "I can try," he said. "Then what? You get arrested?" "She gets deported." He stepped closer. "You didn't see her the night she came here." "No, but I see you now," Mara said quietly. "You're different, Rowan. You look alive again. I just don't want to watch you lose that because of someone the system's already decided doesn't matter." He paused, voice low. "That's exactly why she matters. Mara's jaw tightened, but she nodded once. Then you better start preparing. If you need help rerouting your ID logs, I can buy you time. He blinked, surprised. You'd help. She gave a tired smile. I work with plants, Rowan. Everything the government throws away ends up growing somewhere else. Maybe she should too. When he returned home, Nia was sitting on the couch, reading an old manual from a shelf, the words upside down in her hands. She looked up immediately. Well, they're tracing unregistered signals. My unit's on the list. She went still. So they know. Not yet, but they will. Her voice trembled slightly. You can still fix this. Say it was a data error. Report me. Pretend you didn't know. No. She stood, frustration breaking through. You can't just decide that for both of us. If they take you. He grabbed her hand, firm but not harsh. Stop. I made my choice the moment I deleted that first scan. I'm not going back. Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. You already gave me something back I didn't know I'd lost, he said quietly. That's not nothing. She swallowed hard. What did I give you? Purpose. Silence settled, thick and charged. Her hand was still in his. Neither moved. Finally, she exhaled and said softly, Then if we're running out of time, let's not waste it. He didn't understand her meaning until she stepped closer. Her body brushed his, tentative but sure. He froze, not out of fear, but because he hadn't been touched like this in years. Without pity, without transaction, just intent. Her fingers slid up his arm, tracing the old scar along his bicep. I want to remember what it feels like to trust someone. Nia. She shook her head. No promises. No claims. Just this. He hesitated a heartbeat too long, then closed the distance. The kiss wasn't soft. It was human, imperfect, hungry, full of everything unsaid between them. For a moment, the city outside didn't exist. The hum of the dome, the flicker of lights, all faded until there was only warmth, breath, skin. When they finally broke apart, she whispered, I'm not sorry. Neither am I. They stayed close, silent, listening to the rain start again against the glass. But the calm didn't last. Rowan's wristband vibrated, an alert he'd hoped never to see. Registry sweep confirmed. Sector D17, 48 hours. He met her eyes, the tension returning instantly. They're coming. Her hand found his, fingers tightening. Then we leave. He looked toward the window, the endless sprawl of iris band glowing through the mist. Leaving wasn't simple. Every exit was tracked, every transit watched. But there was no turning back now. Rowan nodded slowly. We'll need a plan. Nia's expression hardened with quiet resolve. Then we start tonight. As the lights dimmed across the city, the two of them stood by the window. No longer just a fugitive and a man who'd taken her in, but partners bound by the one thing the system couldn't erase, choice. The night had no true darkness in Irispan, only layers of filtered blue that deepened as the dome's lights powered down sector by sector. Rowan moved through the apartment in near silence, packing what little he could carry. Field med kit, ration bars, identification pad, an old encrypted drive. Nia worked beside him, folding essentials into a small shoulder satchel. Every sound, the soft click of a zipper, the scrape of boots on the floor, felt magnified. Registry sweeps start at dawn, he said, checking his wristband's dim display. We'll need to be below the promenade before the first scan window. And after that, she asked. He paused. After that, we disappear. Permanently. Nia's expression was unreadable. She tightened the strap on her satchel. You've done this before, haven't you? He looked up briefly. I've helped people do it. Never stayed long enough to see if they made it. And now I stay. It wasn't said dramatically. It was a simple, steady truth. Nia's gaze softened, but she didn't reply. She understood the cost of what that meant. They waited until the city's ambient hum shifted, an almost imperceptible tone that signaled the late maintenance cycle. Rowan opened the panel behind the kitchenette, exposing a narrow maintenance crawlway that led down to the old hydroponic ducts. It was a forgotten route, one he discovered back when he worked on structural audits for the Registry Sanitation Division. Once we reached the ducts, We follow the service grid south for 3 kilometers, he explained. There's a transfer hatch under the Orvin reservoir pumps. Mara can mask our exit signatures from there. Nia blinked. You told her? She offered to help, he said. And she can. She owes me favors from the old evacuations. Without her override codes, we won't make it past the lower sensors. Nia hesitated, then nodded. Then we trust her. The crawlway was cramped and cold. Metal walls pressed close around them, every movement echoing down the tunnel. Rowan went first, his flashlight slicing through the dark. Nia followed, her breath shallow, every sound amplified. The creak of her knees against the metal, the faint rasp of cloth. After 20 minutes, they reached a junction where the tunnel split in 2 directions. Rowan crouched, checking the navigation overlay on his wristband. Left leads to the lower vents. Quieter but longer. Right takes us near the main ducts. Faster, but there'll be guards. Then left, she said without hesitation. No noise, no risk. He glanced back. You've done this sort of thing before. I learned to hide before I learned to perform, she said simply. They kept moving. The air grew colder. Somewhere above, machinery hummed in rhythmic pulses, the sound of the city's breathing. After another hour, a faint light appeared ahead. They emerged into a large maintenance chamber lined with old filtration tanks. A slow drip echoed in the silence. Rowan crouched near the access console, brushing dust from the controls. We're close, he said. Orvin pumps are 2 levels below this one. Nia sat against the wall, catching her breath. Her hair stuck to her temples. Her cheeks were flushed from the climb. I didn't think it would feel this real, she said softly. Running, hiding, planning to vanish. It still feels like a story someone else should be in. He looked at her, then sat beside her. It's real enough for me. She turned toward him. If we leave, you lose everything. Your job, your apartment, your name. Why are you still here? Rowan met her gaze steadily. Because I've already seen what happens when I do nothing. Her eyes searched his face for a long moment. Then if we make it through this, what will we be? Whatever we decide, he said. Before she could respond, a low mechanical hum rolled through the chamber. Deeper, closer than before. Rowan's expression sharpened. Patrol drone, he whispered. Stay still. They crouched in the shadows as a small scanning unit drifted through the corridor outside the chamber, its red sensor beam slicing across the doorway. The light swept inches from Nia's face. She froze, breath held. Rowan reached across, steadying her with one hand against her wrist. The touch grounded her, slow, silent, deliberate. The drone hovered, scanned, then moved on. Only when the sound faded did either of them breathe again. She looked at him, whispering, if that scan had gone 2 seconds longer. It didn't, he said. Luck. Discipline, he said. And maybe luck. They resumed their descent through the ducts until the sound of running water grew louder. At the bottom of a narrow ladder, a service hatch waited, corroded but still functional. Rowan pressed his wristband to the lock. It flashed red. Code mismatch. They've updated the locks. Nia frowned. Can you bypass it? He shook his head. Not fast enough. Before he could think further, the comm on his wrist crackled softly. Mara's voice distorted by interference. Rowan, if you can hear me, I rerouted the south pump sensors. Hatch 9B is clear for 90 seconds. Move. He looked at Nia. That's our window. She didn't hesitate. Together, they forced the hatch open and dropped into the narrow tunnel below. Steam drifted along the floor, and the rhythmic churn of the Orvin pumps thundered above. The air was damp and heavy. They followed the service path until the tunnel opened into a maintenance bay filled with dim green light. Mara stood by the far wall, her hair tied back, jacket streaked with grease. You cut it close, she said, typing rapidly into a control panel. Registry scans go live in 8 minutes. Once you're out that hatch, she pointed to a sealed bulkhead near the far corner. You'll be off the grid completely. Nia stepped forward. What happens to you after we go? Mara shrugged. I'll reroute the data logs, erase the interference. They'll think it was a sensor glitch. I've done worse things for less reason. Rowan gave her a long look. You didn't have to do this. I know, Mara said quietly. That's why I did. For a moment, there was no sound but the pulse of the pumps. Then Rowan reached for Nia's hand. Time to go. They approached the bulkhead. The lock light flicked green under Mara's override. The door hissed open, revealing a dark passage leading to the outer ducts where the waste transport lines carried airflow toward the lower levels of the city, the only route where scans rarely reached. Nia turned back once. Thank you, she said to Mara. Mara smiled faintly. Just make it count. The door closed behind them. They moved through the narrow corridor until the sound of machinery faded and the air grew warmer. Ahead, faint natural light seeped through an opening in the metal. When they emerged, it wasn't to another corridor, it was open space. Below them stretched a forgotten sector of Iris Span, a web of old scaffold bridges, overgrown ventilation vines, and broken transport rails. The dome's filtered sky shone weakly above, fractured by layers of mist and light. Nia stood in awe. No one lives here. Not officially, Rowan said. But the ones who fall through the cracks usually end up somewhere like this. She turned toward him. So this is it, the world outside the system. This is where we start again, he said. She looked around, then back at him, a quiet smile forming. I think I could sing here. You'll make the air remember you, he said softly. She stepped closer, fingers brushing his wrist. And you, I'll keep you safe long enough to finish your song. The faint hum of the city above felt distant now, almost like a memory. For the first time since she'd stepped into his kitchen, there was no fear, no chase, just stillness. They stood together on the metal platform, the wind rising around them, carrying the scent of rain and iron. Below, the forgotten district waited, untouched, unregulated, alive in its own quiet way. Rowan glanced at her once more, steady and sure. We made it. Nia nodded, her voice soft but certain. Then let's live. And as the mist lifted to reveal the first rays of the artificial dawn, they stepped forward together, no longer fugitives, but two souls carving a place in a world that had tried to erase them. The first true morning in the lower ruins of Iris Span arrived without alarms, without scanners, without the sound of a city pretending to care. The filtered light from the dome above reached this place as a pale shimmer, broken, faint, but enough to show the outlines of a world long forgotten by the registry. Rowan woke on the cold floor of an old cargo bay. The place still smelled faintly of rust and old hydro fluid, but the air was breathable. Someone, Nia, had laid a blanket over him while he slept. She sat a few meters away, legs crossed, tuning the strings of a small instrument she'd found in a discarded crate, a cracked Orini harp with half its frame missing. Morning, he said quietly. She glanced up and smiled, soft but tired. You were talking in your sleep. He rubbed his face. About what? Names, she said. I didn't recognize them. He went still. There were only a few people he ever called by name when dreaming. People long gone from the evacuation years. Old ghosts, he said finally. Then they're still keeping you company. He looked at her properly. The exhaustion that had once lived behind her eyes was gone. Her movements were calm, sure. She looked healthier than she had when he'd found her. Her skin glowed faintly under the light, her hair tied into a loose braid that reached her back. How's your implant? He asked. Stable, she said. Whatever you did with that med kit fixed it. She plucked a string. The harp gave a low, broken hum. Not much of an orchestra, but it's something. It sounds better than silence, he said. She smiled faintly, adjusting the tension. You always say things like that. Simple. True. Complicated truths never saved anyone, he replied, pouring water from a reclaimed filter flask into a metal mug. They spent the morning salvaging supplies. Rowan tested the power lines along the old corridor, some still active, most dead. Nia cleared the area near the window, where weak sunlight bled through the cracks in the glass. She hung pieces of fabric she'd scavenged the night before, soft teal and gray, stitched together into makeshift curtains. This feels like a home, she said quietly. It's not safe, he said out of habit. It doesn't have to be safe to feel human, she countered. He stopped, realizing how easily she'd reversed his logic. You're learning my arguments too well. I have a good teacher. Later, they shared the last of the dried turvan meat with boiled zyron roots. The food was bland, but the act of eating together gave it weight. What happens now? Nia asked. We wait, he said. Let the registry believe we've vanished into the underlayers. After a few weeks, the trace protocols decay. And after a few weeks? He looked at her for a long time. Then we decide if we stay here or find a transport off-world. I've still got contacts in the Belt colonies, people who owe me. Nia's eyes lowered. You'd leave Irispan? If staying means hiding forever, yes. She set the cup down carefully. And if I wanted to stay? He thought about that. Then I'd stay too. Her expression softened. You'd give up freedom for me? He shook his head. Freedom doesn't mean anything if it's spent alone. For a while, neither spoke. The hum of distant machinery filled the silence. Nia reached over and touched his wrist, tracing the faint pulse line with her thumb. You still think like a medic. You fix things until they breathe again. He gave a small, tired smile. And you still think like a performer. You make the broken parts sound beautiful. Her hand lingered. Maybe we're both trying to rebuild something. Maybe we are. As the artificial daylight shifted toward the city's evening tone, they climbed to the upper scaffolds of the sector. From there, they could see the underside of Irispan's main tiers, vast structures stretching above them like an artificial sky. Steam vents released plumes that looked almost like clouds. This place used to be full of workers, Rowan said. Hydroponic engineers, cargo haulers. When automation came, they shut it all down. No one ever came back. Nia tilted her head. Then it's ours now. He almost laughed. You claim territory faster than anyone I've met. Someone has to, she said. We can't build a life on borrowed ground. They sat on the edge of the scaffold, legs dangling over the drop, the glow from below reflecting off the metal supports. Nia leaned her head on his shoulder, quiet and still. Do you ever miss the man you were? She asked. Every day, he said, but I don't want to be him again. Why not? Because he survived by following rules, Rowan said. And now I know better. She looked up at him, eyes soft, steady. Then who are you now? He didn't hesitate. Someone who finally chose. She smiled, slow, genuine. Then you're the first real person I've met in a long time. Night settled gradually. The power grid in their sector flickered, dimming the lights until only the pale glow of the dome above remained. They made a fire from an old fuel cell and pieces of scrap insulation. Its warmth filled the small space with an amber hue. Nia sat beside him, the flickering light reflecting on her violet skin. When we first met, I didn't think you'd keep me alive this long, she said softly. When we first met, Rowan replied, I didn't think I'd care this much. She reached for his face then, fingers tracing the scar across his jaw. You're still afraid. Of what? Of what happens if we stop running? He didn't deny it. Fear's the only thing that ever kept me sharp. She leaned closer, her breath brushing his neck. Then maybe it's time to see what happens when you're not sharp. This time, when she kissed him, he didn't pull back. It was slower, grounded, an unspoken acceptance rather than impulse. Her hands rested on his chest. His fingers found the small of her back. For the first time, there was no panic, no threat, no chase, only presence. When they finally parted, she stayed close, her forehead against his. You said freedom doesn't mean anything if it's spent alone. Then don't spend it alone. I won't, he said. They stayed that way until the fire burned low. Outside, the hum of the city softened to a distant heartbeat. For once, the world above them didn't feel like an enemy. It felt irrelevant. By morning, the air smelled faintly of iron and dew. The old ducts released a low hiss as the filtration systems shifted cycles. Nia stirred first, stretching beneath the blanket. Rowan stood by the window, looking out at the broken horizon. Are they still looking for us? She asked. They will be, for a while, he said. But not here. Not anymore. She joined him at the window, their reflections side by side in the cracked glass. Then this is where we start. This is where we live, he said. Nia nodded, slipping her hand into his. Then it's enough. Outside, the filtered sun rose over the lower ruins, cutting through the mist. The metal of Iris Band's forgotten levels glimmered gold for the first time in years. And in that moment, surrounded by rust and silence, two people who were never meant to meet had found something worth rebuilding, something simple, human, and real. Neither of them spoke again. They didn't need to. The world above could keep its order, its rules, its clean, mechanical light. Down here, in the quiet beneath it, they had already built something better.